All right, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. I believe Chris will join us here shortly. So Amy, you'll take attendance. We'll add him to it once he joins. Due to the governor's statewide disaster declaration relating to the COVID-19 pandemic and current public health guidelines for social distancing, I've determined that it's not prudent for members of the village board or staff to convene in person for tonight's meeting. Therefore, the members of the village board are attending this meeting via video conference. Those same conditions require barring access to the public for in-person meeting. In light of those limitations, the public is invited to attend and listen to the meeting through the Zoom platform or by phone as indicated in the meeting agenda. To comply with the Open Meetings Act requirements for virtual meetings, tonight's meeting is being recorded. So with that, I see Chris joined, and just in perfect timing, and maybe we could ask Amy to take attendance and then ask everyone to make sure that they can be heard.
I thought he was going to be that ding. So Trustee Borowski, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. Good evening. Sorry, I'm late.
Excellent. Trustee O'Reilly, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. Trustee Nora, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Excellent. Trustee O'Connor?
Hear you, and I'm here.
Thank you. And Trustee Michaud, same to you.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Excellent. We can. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
All right, and we're all present and accounted for, with the exception of Ann. If we could say the Pledge of Allegiance, that would be appreciated. I'll try to do my best to lead us through that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
To the
to the republic
For which it stands,
under
under
one
God,
nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and
and
justice.
justice for all.
All right, well done, everyone. Well done.
One of these days.
Follow the bouncing ball or something like that. We'll have to
Yeah,
come up with something,
exactly.
right? Put the words on the screen. Homeowners associations are the first items on the agenda. I don't think I see Bob Morrison here from Deerwood Estates. Bob, are you out there somewhere? What about from Woodbine, Craig Smith? Promontory Point, Maury Glickman? And I know we added Rich Tourette to this one as well. We missed him the last time from the Indian Creek Club. Rich, you out there? Anybody from any of these HOAs here tonight that wants to make a comment representing their HOA? All right. Going once, going twice. Moving on to the report of the Plan Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals. And then there's also a report for the Conservancy and Scenic Corridor Committee. And it's going to be presented by Village Planner Jim Hogue. Will you take us through these items?
I sure will. Thank you, Bill. The first item was the public hearing regarding a text amendment for temporary uses in the HR1 retail district. As you will recall, the board, I believe, referred this to the Planning Commission back in October. This is an additional text amendment to the Highway Retail District to allow an additional temporary use for dog training, grooming, boarding, and daycare. This would be in addition to the temporary uses which have already been approved for that location. The Planning Commission did recommend approval by a vote of 7 aye and 0 nay, the amendment to the text. And as kind of a second part of that, there was a petition for Camp Canine, which would be a use to be considered for Unit C of the Geimer Greenhouse building. It's a 10,000 square foot space, would accommodate 60 dogs for daycare and boarding. There would be exercise facilities, a small retail area, and grooming, along with some outdoor pet runs behind the building. The Planning Commission, again, thought this was a very good use for this location, being on the edge of town and away from residences, that there any noise or other externalities, if you will, that would be associated with this use would be minimized at that location. There were 4 conditions that were placed upon the use, and those have to deal with licensing and the care of the animals at the facility. Specifically, that they will comply with all applicable state and local animal care regulations, that they will be kept in a healthy, clean, safe environment, well monitored, food and water, proper sanitation, etc. Services would be limited to those that were outlined in the business plan for the Camp Canine proposal, and would be the layout of the building and the site would be in substantial conformance with what was submitted. Again, the Planning Commission recommended approval of that. The applicant and the property owner and the representative are all here tonight. If you have questions for them, or if you have questions for me, I would be happy to try to answer them at this time.
Any questions from the board?
I have one question. And I think this is a great idea for this location. But reading through all of the material, one thing I missed was, is there someone, does someone stay overnight in the facility?
Per the testimony that they gave, no. The site would be manned from 6:30 in the morning till 6:30 in the evening. However, there would be video monitoring of the site available to both staff for the facility as well as the pet owners 24/7.
Wow, I think that's a flaw. If you've got 50 or 60 dogs, not to have somebody on site. But I'm surprised that that isn't part of the rules for this kind of accommodation.
Ms. O'Reilly, this is Dave Jenner. I'm the applicant. I've done a tremendous amount of research and visited many other locations for this particular business model. And quite frankly, it's very rare that they have 24/7 on-site human body on site 24/7. On the rare occasion of some of the facilities I visited, I found that generally they're close. You know, the property is also their home or adjacent to it, but most of the facilities do not offer 24/7 monitoring.
That's not comforting to me, but yeah, well.
I just want you to know I'm not unique in it.
Yeah, I love it because everybody else does it. You know, it's kind of like when your mom says, well, if Joe jumps off the roof, you could too. So I'm not going to turn you down because of it. I just think it's a bad choice.
Any other questions or comments? Rita,
I
you're
was just,
muted.
oh, go ahead. Oh,
Oh, Jenny, go ahead. Yeah.
I was looking, there seem to be two floor plans. Is there one that takes precedent over the other? I'm not that I'm just curious for my own sake. I think it is a great use. I agree with Bobby. I wish it was, my dog can't go 12 hours without going outside. So wish it was a little bit less time. I understand. I don't think somebody has to sleep there, but I just was curious about the floor plans because there seem to be two different that were submitted with the plan.
There were two plans, Jenny, that were submitted. One was a site plan, one was a floor plan. I believe the floor plan was Exhibit D, and that was the one that was presented to the Planning Commission. So the condition that the site be in substantial conformance with those plans would relate to Exhibit D as submitted to the Planning Commission for consideration.
Dave, Kurt Wandry, I could jump in here for a moment, maybe to clarify it.
Please go ahead, Kurt.
Yeah, the way one of the drawings was done, it was done with 2 pages. Page 1 was inside space and page 2 was outside space. So there's quite a bit of activity. I think David mentioned in his presentation that there's almost 8,000 feet of, let's call it play yard outside behind the building.
That
Jenny,
makes a lot more sense. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, answers your question. Okay.
Thank you.
Rita, you had a question, right?
Yes, I have 2 questions. Your plan mentioned sound barriers, and I readily admit there are very few residential buildings in the neighborhood to be concerned about. There is one family who I think is in the village for maybe a year and a half now. They're just north of Menards. Now they have their driveways right off of 53. And I wonder about the dogs during the day and the people at Davy. Just curious about what kind of sound barriers.
You know, it's funny, I asked that question and they said there was going to be a sound barrier between the partition between the rooms, right? So that was my question from the last time when they were before us.
Ah,
I actually asked that question and Kurt, I think, answered it.
Yeah, that's true. There's one other thing that actually I testified with the planning commission and I thought the closest house was like 500 feet away. I did a Google Earth search on it and the closest house is on the west side of 53, 1,000 feet away. So
that's the one I was thinking of. I didn't realize it was that far away.
it was, it's a lot further.
And could you, just one more time, I listened in on the plan commission meeting on Monday evening. The waste removal that Mr. Jenner talked about at the meeting. Could you just like review that?
Yes, I can do that. So the waste removal, so solid waste removal would be placed in a bag and then essentially hauled away with the normal trash. That is generally how all of these facilities would operate. The cleaning and sanitation, I plan to have a state-of-the-art cleaning and sanitation equipment called Aqua Air, which essentially acts as picture a Stanley steamer that lays down hot water as well as sanitation, pH balanced sanitation fluid, and then you kind of pull back on it, sucks it up, and so the liquid sanitation then would go into the septic, but the solid waste that would be picked up would be hauled away with the trash.
And the septic system that's there can handle that, all of the water that's involved with that, liquids.
I would imagine so, but I'm based on the size of the facility and what the occupancy has been and so forth in the past. I would imagine, yes, it would be fine.
Okay, just curious. I think it's a great use, and I compliment you on your business plan that you submitted. It's probably one of the most thorough that I've seen while being on the board. I wish you a lot of luck with this.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I spent a lifetime of 30 years in corporate America, and I'm ready to get out and do something on my own. So.
Great.
Are there any other questions or comments? I mean, so Bill or Jim, do we need to make any kind of a motion to draft up paperwork for the next meeting to get this?
Correct. What you should be doing, Bill, is directing council to prepare an ordinance approving the text amendment. And the applicant is anxious to get started on this project. So if you would make that motion, we would have this come back for the second reading, which is our standard process at the December 29th special meeting. That's largely TIF-related materials, I believe, that's going to be on that meeting. But if we could put this on there, that would be beneficial to the applicant.
Okay, so who wants to make the motion?
So moved.
Motion by trustee O'Connor, seconded by
Me?
trustee O'Reilly. The O's have it here. And this is to draft up the paperwork. You want to help wordsmith this, somebody?
You mean the
Yeah,
text
motion to
amendment?
prepare, direct council to prepare the approval ordinance for the 12/29 special meeting.
Did you get that, Amy?
Yes.
Okay, so moved by trustee O'Connor, seconded by trustee O'Reilly. Roll call.
Trustee Borowski,
Yes.
trustee O'Reilly,
Yes.
trustee Nora,
Yes.
trustee O'Connor,
Aye.
and trustee Michaud.
Yes.
All
Okay.
right.
Thank you.
Motion carried. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Looking forward to having you here in the village.
Thank you very much. And I'll be exiting the meeting now, but I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. And I look forward to meeting all of you in person at some point in time, hopefully soon versus virtual. So
We all look forward to that. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
have a good evening.
Thank you, Dave.
you.
You too.
Thanks.
Thanks, you too.
All right, Jim, you've got more on your plate, don't you?
I do. The
Keep
second
going.
item that the planning commission considered was the ordinance that amended the building code regarding berms. Again, at your October 27th meeting, the board asked that the planning commission review this. Just so you recall, the village code addressed berms that were in scenic corridors, but not outside scenic corridors. So an ordinance was approved. And you had asked that the planning commission look at that ordinance. In general, I did a bit of research on it. I found that what we had approved is pretty much consistent with regulations of other nearby communities with regard to berms. The planning commission noted 2 comments. The first that would be to consider a distinction for berm height between residential and non-residential uses. That a taller berm could be beneficial to residents seeking to screen their property from traffic uses. And the concern was that a property owner that was having issues with traffic may need a higher berm, but would have to go through the special use permit process, which would be burdensome, costly, and time consuming. So that was the rationale for that comment. The second one was to consider the materials for berm construction. It was thought that some of the prohibited materials may actually be very suitable in constructing a berm. Those were the only 2 comments that the Planning Commission had with regard to that.
So any comments? I'm just trying to consider distinction in a berm height between residential and non-residential. So, yeah.
I think that's actually a good idea too, but I'm confused. Are we talking about berm height on public property or berm height on private property?
It would be, I believe, any property that's outside of a conservancy or outside of a scenic corridor easement. So if it was public or private, it wouldn't make a difference. The regulations would apply to either.
And this is Vic. Let me jump in on that. To the extent that it's, say, in a right of way, that would not be subject to it. This is respecting our zoning regulations, not our right of way regulations. So we would have the discretion to do something more if it were in connection with one of our roadways. But this was directed chiefly at building permits on properties within the village.
So private property would be limited to a 4-foot berm. Is it?
Unless they got a special use permit or unless it was in a conservancy easement.
And if it was in a conservancy, or they couldn't do it at all in a conservancy? Is that
Well,
what-
our scenic corridor and
Oh, it's
conservancy,
scenic corridor.
that
different.
allows up to 8 feet.
Yes.
All others would be 4 feet unless a special use permit were granted for something larger. And that's what the board approved, I want to say about a month and a half ago. That can be changed. That can be changed without having to go through further public hearing. But the recommendation, or at least the reaction of the Plan Commission, was consider having a more easily accessible height change without having to go through special procedures if it's abutting non-residential property. I think, Jim, that's a fair description.
Yeah, particularly when it abutted a roadway where traffic was traffic noise and trying to screen from traffic was a concern.
Yeah, and I would add that although that may make sense, given some of the genesis of this regulation, we may want to keep the reins a little bit tighter on this and have folks go through the special procedures at least until we have a better feel for what might happen.
I agree with that.
Because again, the one that, the circumstance that initially gave rise to this was in fact along a roadway. So that may not be quite the direction the board wants to go.
Yeah, but it was a very pregnant berm.
If they are capable of being pregnant, it was.
But I agree with what Vic just verbalized. You know, I enjoy driving down and, you know, not that I'm the only person and that's the biggest thing in the world, but it's nice driving through Long Grove where you do have a vista. And if you back up to a busy road, then the question is, well, how far away does the road have to be before I can screen this? Or, you know, can I do this much? Can I do this little? And if you end up driving down roads where there are no vistas anymore, is that a potential issue? You know, if you're gonna, I would rather go with lighter regulation than a lot of regulation, I guess. But I agree with the distinction between commercial and residential. Parts of this just seem really arbitrary to me, I guess, and that's doesn't quite feel right. Maybe Vic can speak to that.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned that about a vista. You know, that's very much a part of our community.
Yeah, it is.
Is the vista.
Yeah, you know, it's open spaces. So
It's kind of like the streets that have fences, you know,
Yeah.
5-foot fences, and you feel like, yuck.
right. And they fall into disrepair. I saw a deer on top of the berm at the Grove Country Club a couple of weeks ago. I was sitting at the traffic light and I saw something moving. There's a deer up there eating the weeds that are growing on it. You know, I'm like, great.
Can you put a fence on a berm?
Vic's thinking. I don't know.
Theoretically, yes. I'd have to take a closer look to see when we measure height of fences, if it's original grade or if it's modified grade. I have not looked at that particular issue.
Because that could
That could be
be
good.
a real negative.
Yeah,
And one thing I should clarify, it's not only a special use permit. If someone doesn't need any zoning relief, they can either get the greater than 4-foot height through part of a zoning relief presented to the board, or by just seeking relief directly from the board through resolution. So if somebody is zoning compliant in all respects, but they just want to have a taller berm, the board can grant that directly. It doesn't have to go through the multiple steps of public notice and hearing and then an ordinance.
I think this is the kind of thing that can come back and bite you if we don't do it right.
I agree.
Well, I think what Vic's saying though is the resolution we have on the table, I mean, what's been approved already, right? Not the modification. That actually gives us the best, what do you want to call it? Protection, right?
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
clamped down pretty substantially with what you approved a month or so ago. And the Plan Commission, I think their recommendations, or their reaction, I should say, was really more a matter of, should it be relaxed a bit? And as it currently sits, the village board has that ability to do so. But I think we can do it a little more contextually under the current ordinance than if we have some more generic exceptions. And the fact that it doesn't have to go in every instance through a special use permit, it can be a piggyback on that, but it could also just be a direct appeal to the village board, shouldn't make it too cumbersome from a regulatory perspective. If I might add, as to the second point on the materials, I think maybe Jeff might want to jump in on that, because that was something that had been concerning under the existing provisions of the International Building Code and what we had been looking at for berms generally.
Jeff, you're muted.
Sorry about that. So, yeah, I'm not aware of what the discussion was at the Plan Commission meeting as far as the materials of the berm. But, in general, to keep berms free of, deleterious material or hazardous material, as had been talked about previously this year, specifically, those contaminants that could pose health risks or risks to the environment, hydrocarbons and volatile organic compounds.
Where did those come from? I mean, how do you get soil with that stuff in it?
Hydrocarbons, cars leaking gas on the road is one way. Tankers spilling, volatile organic compounds. Those are more naturally occurring. There's, if you find a pocket of those somewhere.
But you don't buy that stuff, you just haul it in? Is that where it comes? Is that how people get it?
As far as, construction projects, you do your pre-construction testing, your geotechnical evaluations and things like that, so that, you see if you have those, and those would not be permitted on, a berm, commercially. Residential berm, if somebody's buying something, imported fill from a landscape supply company, those companies, screen for that stuff. So, yeah, I understand your point. Yeah, you're not going to go buy that from a local nursery or distributor.
So if I
It would
want
be
to
more on the front. Go ahead.
if I wanted, if I wasn't real smart about things like that, and my landscaper said, yeah, you need fill to make a berm, create a berm, blah, blah, blah. And do I get that tested and present that to the village? How does that work?
I think it will be if somebody applies for a special use permit for berm, what's the source of the material? And if they say, any number of landscape supplies, obviously that's going to, we'll know that upstream testing has happened, before those places have taken it.
Okay, so when they apply for the permit, that's when those questions are asked, and that's when somebody has.
Correct.
Gee, I don't know. Okay,
Yep.
all right. Okay, thank you.
So, I mean, it sounds like, and I guess I don't know if we need to go around the horn or not, and maybe we can do a head nod, that, we should leave the ordinance as we have in place now, as we amended it prior, and then keep an eye on it. And if it makes sense to lighten it up or be more, flexible because it's difficult or whatever, we can do that. But now, we've got something in place that I use the word protection, but ensures that we, the berms aren't too tall, and gives us some coverage here so that we protect our scenic views.
Who's going to keep an eye on it? Is that Margarita?
Yeah, procedurally, that's a great question.
I think the concept there was to be permit driven, so it would be the building department responsibility. I think it's coordinated with Jeff if there's a technical issue with regard to the measurement. But clearly, this is the concept is to get some sort of permit control over it, which would be building department.
And so would there be an inspection as part of this?
I would anticipate as virtually all permits that we issue have some form of inspection. This would be more of a civil inspection than a structural inspection, unless there was some fencing associated with it at some level, then that would be a second permit. But yeah, that would be the expectation. Otherwise, you get to the situation that you anticipate things are done before they finish. And then of course, if you leave it for a bit, that's not a good place to be either in terms of the the compliance issues and then going backtracking. So I think clearly getting a plan, making sure the owner understands what that plan is, and inspecting it for compliance would be the source. And if it's, if it's too high, and that would be I would expect that would be the contracted plan that a landscaper would work to, and the owner should protect themselves contractually when these things are being built, and generally, they would. So if it's too high or too steep or basically too high, you go back and say correct it as you would like a punch list or something. That has to be corrected. That would be my expectation.
Okay.
I have checked our codes, and a fence would be allowed on a berm, and the height of that fence would be based on the post-construction of the berm height. So if it's a 4-foot berm, you could go then above that height, however, depending on the location of the fence, however high it's allowed. So if we wanted to put some constraints on fencing on berms, we can further amend this provision. And again, we can have the same kind of escape hatches that we have in place for the general height of the berm, but we can also make sure we put the clamps on, at least initially, on any fences up the top of the berm.
I think it would defeat the purpose of scaling back to 4 feet if you could then put a fence on top of it.
I
That's a
agree.
Good point.
Agreed.
I absolutely agree. And Vic, procedurally, how do you prevent arbitrary decisions from a board? It's like, well, yeah.
Well, we know that you all would not make one, so we're protected in that regard.
Well,
Well, and actually, and I don't mean to be facetious about it, and I'm not intending to be, because really, when you make your decisions on a lot of these things, you're making them contextual. And there may be some instances where the location is such that the impact of adjoining property uses or traffic would warrant something higher. There are other circumstances where, again, if it's neighbor to neighbor, or if the homes are very close to each other, that would be inappropriate. I think making those types of decisions, just as we make decisions on variations and the like, are the things that we look at. We don't have it expressly stated in the ordinance, but we certainly could say with a little more specificity that it will be based on whether or not there are any kind of unreasonable adverse impacts on neighboring properties. But the only thing about that standard is that it doesn't take into account the vista issue that we've talked about earlier tonight. So I actually do think that if we're treating this as an exception, as opposed to as a way of limiting the right, we have a little more discretion, because no one's entitled to the exception unless circumstances warrant it. If you want to have that stated more expressly, we can, but I don't know that it's absolutely necessary to do so.
All right, so
thank you.
go ahead. Where does that leave us? So we're saying don't add anything about fences, Vic? Is that what you just said? You
I
recommend?
think that adding the fence restriction would be appropriate. We'd have
Okay.
the same kind of escape hatch that someone can come to the board or ask for relief as part of any kind of zoning petition.
Okay, everyone in agreement with that on the board?
Yeah, we shouldn't allow fences on top of berms, not without reason and review.
Chris?
Well, I go back to vistas. I think 4 feet is a pretty big wall of dirt. And I'm troubled actually just by the height. Rather, I contemplate the philosophy of what we want, what we have for vision of Long Grove. I don't want to go to the public and say we want berms. I mean, basically we're saying anybody can put a 4-foot berm up if they want to. I realize they can berm now, I get it, but on the other hand, I think philosophically I want to discourage berm use as much as we possibly can. So that's really what I worry about. To me, the distinction between residential and commercial, I thought that was just, in my mind, I think it's backwards, kind of backwards. I don't want to wall off everybody's houses with an 8-foot berm. I just don't see that as being the community that we are. So to me, it's a philosophical question. Details we could work out. The question is, what do we want the village to look like? And to me, I prefer minimizing berms and doing everything we can to keep them out of our municipality, because they could end up looking like tunnels. I mean, think about back-to-back berms between property owners. I mean, what's the point? Encouraging community or putting more walls up,
And what do you do about stormwater management? And there are a lot of communities in the village that don't allow fences at all. So,
Right.
So a berm is
The fence, 4-foot one's a fence.
it's a pseudo fence.
Yeah.
Hawthorne Woods has that regulation. Kildare, you just can't fence in your property. But berms and a 4-foot berm is not going to make or break. I understand what we're trying to accomplish, and I'm desperately searching for a copy of the resolution, and I can't find it. Is it in the packet? I thought I read it.
It's not in today's packet. If you
Okay.
can go back, I believe it was the October meeting. Let me see.
Okay, all right, because I'm pretty sure I read it in the last couple days to refresh my memory on it. I'm trying to pull it up. So sorry if I.
Well, let me propose this idea, right? So in order to keep the meeting moving, right, we have an ordinance in place that we did a month or so ago, right? It provides us coverage. There's a discussion about amending it. Maybe this is one that we put on another agenda to look at again, and have you look at the resolution that was passed and come back with some ideas and discuss it that way. What do you think?
That would help me.
Well, since nobody's clamoring at the door to build a berm with a fence on it, I think we could probably take some time and look at what kind of wording Vic would suggest to limit that. And I haven't forgotten that we're addressing this because we realized that we had nothing, which meant there were no rules. That didn't mean you couldn't build one. It meant you could build it as big as you wanted it.
Yeah, in some locations, correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so
We'll come back for the meeting in January, since there's no immediacy for it, and have a draft that you can have for discussion, not for action. And again, take it with appropriate pace.
Thanks.
All right.
Yep,
Thank you,
that-
everyone.
That would help me. Thank
Yep.
you. I appreciate
Any,
it.
any objections to that?
Was that the October 27th meeting, Vic? Where we have a copy of that resolution?
I believe so. I stopped looking when.
Okay, it's
Bill-
okay. It's all right. I'll look it up.
It's actually ordinance 2020-017, and I believe you approved that at your October 27th meeting.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, if everyone's okay, Jim, you still have more items on your plate. Please empty it.
Conservancy Committee met on December the 2nd. There were no action items for consideration. They did have an application for restoration of a conservancy area that was continued at the request of the applicant. The CSC noted several concerns about the planting scheme, if you will, that was proposed. Namely that it was kind of a monospecies in nature. It is a wet area that they're dealing with, so some of the species proposed were not suitable for that. They suggested that a wider variety of blooming flowering species be considered in the conservancy so that they had an aesthetic for 3 seasons. The comments that the CSC have been forwarded to the applicant, and hopefully they will be incorporating those into the restoration plan, which will be brought back possibly in January. I'm not sure of that, but that's the game plan for now. Secondly, they did re-review the landscape plan for Route 22. They did have additional comments. I will be taking those and putting them into memo format. I will get that back to the CSC, and when they're done with it, I will forward those to you all for your consideration. The third item was the discussion of natural plantings in the landscape islands. I have reiterated to the CSC that this is not a high priority for the board, from the board, I should say, excuse me. I did provide the direction that you had given previously regarding this issue. They have been looking at what would be kind of a best practices thing for landscaping of islands in the medians. And the idea that they have would be that test plots would be possibly a way to explore the viability of natural plantings in the medians. They did go out and look at Route 83 and Old McHenry Road. There are a couple of areas in the Old McHenry Road berms that may be maybe a good place to see if the test plots would work. And they will still be working on this, compiling data, species, costs, those kinds of things that will come back to you at a subsequent meeting. And that were the three items for the CSC. Again, no action items from them.
Jim,
Yes.
on Route 22, I assume that was with the consultants planting ideas?
Yes.
Okay.
The consultants' plans were forwarded to the CSC. They were also forwarded to the arborist. Both of them had concerns. The CSC has additional concerns. Largely what they were concerned about were certain species and the size of the species and the way that they spread. That was a large part of the concerns of the CSC, but I will formalize those and I will get you those in the future.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jim, for what it's worth, for me, it's a high priority. It may not be all of us, but you know, when you drive through villages and towns throughout the country that are just really picturesque,
mm-hmm.
It almost always, to me, is that way because their plantings work with the climate. They're of a consistent form or color or design, and it adds a tremendous amount to little towns, I think. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the fact that those islands could be test islands, I think, is really exciting. So,
okay.
Please thank
them. That's the other item. That's not necessarily Route 22. That's
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But that's you know, the big entrance to
sure.
the main part of town. It could be really, really pretty.
Hopefully we'll have some recommendations for you in the near future.
Thank you. I thank you for your efforts.
You're welcome.
If there's no more questions, Jim, I'm going to thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
And we're going to move to the report of the Economic Development Commission. Everyone okay with that? All right. Yes. Thank you. Jenny, you're going to lead us through this? And
yeah. So another good meeting and productive. There's a couple, so we're good. Erwin suggested, because there's so much information on the PPP that's coming in and changing, and the EDC can't really take on everything that's happening. Erwin suggested that we pair up with maybe Sickich to tap into their resources because they're constantly updating it. So I have reached out, thanks to you, Bill, to a Valerie Goldenberg, and I'm going to be meeting with her Thursday afternoon to discuss how we can link up and put some of that information on our website. A lot of things are just kind of in the works. I would encourage, we're continuing to tap businesses to feature on the How'd You Do It. The Bridge to Business notes is still on the board packet. That's being revised. I think Jim put a lot of work into that, and Anne had some good comments. So, you know, take a look at it. If there's anything that pops out that you think should be added or taken away from that, please send your comments to me. Thank you to Bobby for putting me in touch with your photographer about the drone. I reached out to them and got a price of $150 to do a short drone video. So I'm going to I sent that back to the EDC, and I think we're going to try to coordinate some sort of overhead video highlighting our outdoor winter spaces like the igloos and the Alpine Beer Garden and the sleigh rides to kind of encourage people to come downtown. Say we're still open. And then the last thing, Mina gave a really great site selection presentation today, which I learned a lot. And I think it kind of inspired us to have a work session at our next meeting, kind of talking about how we can capitalize on what Long Grove does well and do a lot of data, bulk up our website, and kind of do what Mina does for these big businesses, maybe the EDC website can do for the small business, and kind of entice people, give them the information that they'll need to want to come and make a successful business in Long Grove. So that's what I've got. Any questions?
Are your meetings recorded?
Yes.
Are they, and they're on the website, I assume?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So I would Mina's presentation was awesome.
Yeah, I'd like to hear her.
But I think there's a lot of energy, so.
Hey, Jenny, sorry, Jenny, the drone video sounds like a great idea, but does it include outside of downtown as well?
We were just going to be, it was $150 for one location. So we were just going to focus on the outdoor, because I guess that's a really good question, because I think that maybe the pub up on 83 might have outdoor things. We kind of were focusing on the downtown, but
I'd rather spend $300 and be inclusive than.
Yeah, that's a really good
point.
point. That's a good point. So I think, am I incorrect? Is that the only other restaurant that's doing outdoor dining is the one up on 83? I'll look into it.
The one on 22 doing, is the one on 22, are they doing outdoor?
I haven't seen anything. The
In Long Grove
Clay
Common?
Tavern or Oven or whatever it is. Yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't seen anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good question, Chris, and I will do a little research and try to make it all inclusive.
As much as practical. Thank you.
Mhm.
That was exactly the question I was going to ask, so I don't have any other questions.
Well, well done with the review there, Jenny. Roger, well done meeting. And former trustee Sarletto, always appreciate your input as well on these meetings. Any other comments? If not, we'll move to the next item on the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. Jeff, you're going to help me a little bit, and I may be able to help you too, because it got a little confusing. But we've got North Kruger coming up, so we need to pass some resolutions saying that we're going to spend some money, but we're going to get some of the money is going to be matched, right, with 20% with the federal funding that we're getting. So it's interesting the way this is laid out. So maybe Jeff, you can go through this, because at the end of the day, we're being asked to pass a resolution that says we're going to spend $729,000, but we're really not, because the engineering dollars we have to pay first, and then we get 80% back. So that's why it's 729. And then the state pays, and we only pay 20% up front. And then part of it, because the Kruger Road is 100% local, that's the south end of it, we're 100% responsible. So I probably just blew the explanation, or maybe it made sense. I don't know, but it took me a little while to figure that out, Jeff. So take it away.
All right, so the resolution that you have before you is a resolution for funding North Kruger Road, as President Jacobs said, $729,480. I just wanted to walk through that just a little bit. So the village budget and outlay for the project had always been discussed at $584,280. So why the discrepancy? So the resolution is $729,480. That's made up of two things. It's the construction engineering and the actual construction costs. The construction engineering will talk about that a little bit more on the next agenda item, but that's the cost of $181,490 that had been discussed at the November meetings and verbally agreed upon by the board. The construction, as Bill mentioned, is in two parts. It's the south third of North Kruger Road, which the village made the conscious decision that that section of the road would be milled and resurfaced in place to preserve the existing geometry of the road and more importantly, save the mature growth trees in that section of the roadway. That section is 100% locally funded, and the engineer's estimate to construct that portion of the road and do those improvements is $264,250. The other component is the north 2/3 of North Kruger Road, the construction of that. That is the portion of the road that is going to be built to federal standards and will be subject to an 80-20 cost split, village share being the 20%. The engineer's estimate at the 20% for the north 2/3 of North Kruger Road is $283,739.60, rounded to $283,740,000. So adding those three numbers together, again, the $181,490 for the phase 3 construction engineering, the $264,250 for the local portion of North Kruger Road, which is the south third being preserved to protect the trees. And then the third number is the $283,740 for the north portion. Again, that represents the 20% village cost. Add those three numbers together, that's where you get the $729,480. Now, the nuance of this is the state requires that number be committed to by the village, because as Bill mentioned, the construction engineering is paid by the village to the consultant and then reimbursed by the state. Unfortunately, the state makes no commitments or guarantees on when that reimbursement comes, so they require a resolution for that full amount. The $264,000 is 100% local responsibility, and then the $283,000 for the north portion is also the village responsibility. The state initially pays for all of the construction costs and then sends the village the invoices for the construction, the south portion and the north portion. So the maximum amount that the village could have to lay out is the $729,000. After the reimbursement, that number then goes down to the $584,280, which reflects a reimbursement by IDOT of $145,192. So although the resolution's $729,000, the number at the end of the day is $584,280. So hopefully that helps with the explanation on where that larger number comes from.
Jeff, on the southern third, the part that we're doing on our own.
Yeah.
Are we bidding that separately, and will we have the construction happen separately or simultaneously?
So the way this is, it's required to be bid as one project. So it'll all happen by one contractor simultaneously or concurrently, depending on how they stage the project.
I see. So we just pay our share, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff, could you remind me how many feet from 22, how much isn't getting done that's going to wait for 22?
Okay, so our project actually starts at the northern right of way of Route 22. The first 300 feet, let me make sure I got that number right, but that section will get milled and resurfaced. I would refer to that as a micro milling and resurfacing. The idea is to remove just the top 2 inches of the wearing course of the asphalt, put two inches on. Again, that'll make the whole road look uniform at the end. Now, that micro resurfacing will not stand the test of time. So the idea is that minimal scope of work is going to preserve that road to when IDOT comes back and fully reconstructs it. Again, that
So it's
distance
300 feet
is,
north of 22.
that distance is 300 feet. So
Okay,
everything from 22 to Kruger Court.
okay. That's 300 feet? Wow. That seems like a,
That pretty much gets torn up when the state widens 22 and puts a light at that intersection.
well, yeah, and adding lanes and all of that, I'm sure.
Any other questions? Because I guess we have to pass 2 resolutions, and this is required to get our, our federal funding for next year. Right now, we still go out and bid. The engineering, we've got a not to exceed estimate, but the road paving costs, those will be bid in the spring. So
Yeah, this is scheduled for a March 5th letting. So, those construction dollars, they could come in different. Hopefully they come in a lot lower come March 5th.
So questions? Hopefully we tried to make this less confusing than it was, or if I made it more confusing, sorry. It took me a while to figure it out, so.
Now, Jeff did a great job explaining it because my only question had to do with the money.
Yep.
So good
Thank
job.
you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. I hit you up like, how many emails?
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, so then if everyone's okay, we've got 2 resolutions that need to be passed, right? Does anyone want to make a motion?
I would make a motion to, let's see, a resolution authorizing $729,480 local matching funds toward the improvements to North Kruger Road from 22 to Gilmer, 1.106 miles.
Second.
Okay, moved by trustee O'Reilly, seconded by trustee Nora. Roll call, Amy?
Hearing. Okay, trustee Michaud,
Yes.
trustee O'Connor,
Yes,
trustee Nora,
Yes.
trustee O'Reilly,
Aye.
All right,
and trustee Borowski.
Aye.
motion carried. The next one, who wants to make a consideration resolution approving a proposal from Gaywald Hamilton for a not to exceed amount of 181,149 for North Kruger?
so moved.
Moved by
Second.
trustee O'Connor, seconded by trustee Michaud.
Trustee let's see, trustee Borowski,
Aye.
trustee O'Reilly,
Aye.
trustee Nora,
Aye.
trustee O'Connor,
Aye,
and trustee Michaud.
Aye.
A motion carried. Thank you. The next item is, we did get the bills list. It's in your note here. It says consideration of a motion approving the pay warrant for December 2020. The bills list came today. Any questions on them?
Where was it?
It's now in the board packet. It was not there until like 12 o'clock. So if you go there, bill list, it's called the item 6 bill list.
I got it. Okay.
Take a look at it really quick. because we do need to pay our bills. So we're still working some kinks out of how to get this done more efficiently. Bill, right?
Absolutely correct. Yeah, this was, this actually came to me in a different delivery mechanism. I was waiting for an online delivery from the accountant. She sent it in properly in a more secure fashion. And I didn't realize it was there. So we got it out. It's totals $257,572.18 in total.
Okay, I'm good.
Anybody else have any concerns, questions? If not, does somebody want to make a motion
I
approving?
make a motion to approve.
Moved by
Second.
trustee O'Reilly, seconded by trustee Micho. Roll call?
Okay, trustee Michaud,
Yes.
trustee O'Connor,
Aye.
trustee Nora,
Aye.
trustee O'Reilly,
Aye.
trustee Borowski.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you. We've got a few more items on here, but in the middle here is the village president and trustee reports. I do want to just go ahead and give you an update on Baker Tilly. The contract was actually executed today by Bill Balling. So we have the agreement in place. Vic worked at the end of the last week with Baker Tilly to get them to approve our professional services terms. And then that got signed off today with the appropriate insurance policy and all that stuff. A memo is going to go out tomorrow from Sharon Klump to you all, requesting a 1-hour interview starting on December 11th. She was hoping to get them done by Wednesday, December 16th. I don't know when Ann's coming back. But the memo will give you some of the questions that she's going to be asking to get feedback on what we're looking for in a new village manager as part of the first step. You know, some of the questions are describe what successful performance in the village manager position looks like. What do you see as the most important issues and priorities in which the village manager should be involved? What initiatives, services, or processes would you like the village manager to evaluate, implement, or change in his or her first 2 years of employment? And it goes on. There's several other, you know, good questions. And then at the same time, Sharon's starting to collect some information for the brochure. We're going to need to work through at some point pay, you know, and salary and things like that, and what we're willing to pay. But you know, she's just literally getting it started, and you'll see a memo tomorrow to kick this off. So, any questions?
Are we working on this bill at the December 29th meeting? Are we continuing to work on any of these issues or questions?
Well, I guess we'll see where it goes, right? I mean, I'm just getting the first response back for her. So I guess we'll get the question is how quick will we get a readout from her? She'll be directing us. But I don't know that yet, right? So we just literally got it signed, and she's already started it, which is great. So
yeah. It's just the 2 weeks between meetings is sort of drags things out.
well, we'll figure it out. I guess we'll find out you know, what we do next, right? So we'll keep in touch with Sharon, and we'll let you know.
Okay.
No other questions, comments? If not, maybe we'll just follow what's been listed here on the agenda, the historic bridge repair update. Somebody want to talk about that? Bill?
Yeah, we've had some great progress this week. In fact, we hope to wrap up the siding by close of business tomorrow. The steel has been installed. It was a very good job. It's a very solid bridge now, the superstructure of the bridge. And the framing is going in place. We expect to have that completed, like I say, should be by close of business tomorrow, and then the bridge will be reopened. The second phase of our work effort, and Jeff and I have been working on this together, is we've identified a pretty good contractor that we've asked them to evaluate and give us a proposal for security and monitoring of the bridge. It's actually the firm that has been under contract with Lake County on a variety of contracts. If anybody's been to LC Dot up in Libertyville, they maintain a lot of active traffic management of signals and stuff, the peak volume flexibility. Lots of cameras, lots of activity, and well executed. And so we've asked them to come in and take a look at both camera monitoring, inbound and outbound on the bridge, and then surveillance of trucks primarily that would activate additional warning alerts. That probably visual in terms of lighting, but could be audible as well if we wanted to. That'll be activated through a laser trigger system. We're going to camp on the inside, the village side of the bridge on some set of light poles. I like the existing ComEd wood poles because we get a little more height out of those. But we can install those on the shorter poles as well, and these would be small cameras and laser beam connectors, if you will. And then the inbound side, the church side, if you will, of the bridge, we're still evaluating location for pole placement because we're going to need, in terms of structures, we're going to need adequate poles to put the lasers in place, and then to have the monitoring cameras, and then we need power to the sources. So the existing poles in the village are attractive to us. Need some coordination with Edison, obviously, in that area. But this is a project that once we see pricing and get it back to the board, I think they work 12 months out of the year, so we can get this up closely after we reopen the bridge, and assuming the price is right. And we haven't seen pricing yet. The representative of the firm did have an on-site visit to confirm the logistics and the demands of the site. So we feel pretty encouraged. Jeff, I'm forgetting the name of the company that we talked to. What?
Traffic Control Corporation.
Traffic Control Corp. Yeah. So I think we've got the right people to talk to. If we have the right pricing, that remains to be seen, and we should have something back to the board in your hands in fairly short order. So we feel pretty good with the progress that's going on. The other issue we have is probably in our January meeting, our January 12th meeting, we'll have the local traffic only ordinances in place because we're coordinating the sign installation with the township. You might see the signs go up a little bit earlier than that because we kind of work with coordinate with their schedule as best we can. But we wouldn't be enforcing anything on that until we passed the ordinance and brought it back. So it'd be the second week in January that we begin any enforcement mechanism with the sheriff. But you might see a couple of those signs going up, certainly inbound from 53. But we need to work with these guys. They're getting in their busy season too with snow and whatnot. So we're giving some flexibility. So I feel we've got a good response strategy. We've got a much sturdier bridge structure. Somebody does hit it, they're not going to forget it because it's a pretty durable facility now. And the boards are above the reinforcing beam that we installed on either side of the entrances to the bridge. So we're feeling, we're optimistic that this is going to do it. I don't, the amateur drivers that are going in there with the high box trucks that don't know what they're driving could still be a concern, but I think we've armored the bridge with that steel that to minimize the any further wood damage, if you will, on the facility.
I think we certainly thank Chuck for the idea of the additional steel to protect the bridge. It was Chuck's idea, and I thought it was kind of squirrely to begin with, but as he talked more and more about it, it seemed like a good idea. Have you're not talking to the guy the security company that's right there?
We haven't at this point. I'd like to, I don't think that we've ruled that out. But if we can get sort of a system concept on preliminary pricing, we've not asked for a formal proposal. We said, look, we've got to see what order of magnitude where we're at.
Well, we had a formal proposal from him, and we got into it was more than we needed, and that's when I stepped out, so that he was an arm's length. But because he is a resident and he does have his business here, I think we have to pay some consideration to him. I went there. What's the status of the signs, Jeff? Chuck and I, went out there 2 mornings, and I'm not sure why we went.
Okay, the sign revisions that we talked about, and just to kind of back up a minute, there were a few. One was raising the stop sign on the westbound traffic. People traveling from downtown towards 53. The sign that said 1-lane bridge, use center track was hidden by the mailboxes, so that got raised. Right across the way from that sign, that pole was leaning over, so the township told me that they replumbed that thing, but I went out there and I could see that they put some effort into it, but
they were not successful.
This morning I told them they needed to provide a little bit more effort.
Yeah. Well, I thought, at least it was my intention, and I think Chuck's too, but he's here so he can speak to it too, was to clean up the site so that your eyes didn't lose sight of the signs. And it's the same old crap. I mean, it's so cluttered with so much garbage that we're still in the same place. The only thing I did see was that the sign, the arrow turning into the parking lot is now bigger.
Yep, that's an improvement.
They changed that.
That
They
is
put
one
that little
improvement.
one into the Stemple lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bobby, I think to your point, if standing on the road, if you look at Newman Cigars at the driveway, we're talking about the sign to the right. To the left of that, there were also some superfluous extra signs over there, and the township took them out. One was cross only at the crosswalks. Another one was a very badly faded vehicles will be towed. So they took those out, and I think it's a testament to your comment. They took them out and we didn't even notice because they kind of blended into the background.
There's so much
Exactly.
left.
So I think that's step one. So step two, we can keep going on this. Absolutely.
I would still like to consider a sign that says fines up to whatever amount you can be fined if you are in violation of multiple ordinances. And that was Aaron Underwood had a very similar comment. He thought that would be important. And apparently at one point we had video surveillance signs up.
Yep.
And that seemed to help.
That was
So-
important at the time.
So I'm almost wondering if that's something we consider depending on what the real video system would cost us.
If I were in charge, I'd put them up tomorrow.
I don't disagree, but we just got done talking about how cluttered we are with signs.
Well,
What do we
I'd take a
down?
bunch down.
That's the part, that's the hard part. What do we get to take down to put others up?
So the township may still have those signs, or those signs may be actually on the shelves over at the water treatment plant. So I'm not going to rule out the fact that they are gone. So I can have the guys look for them tomorrow. If memory serves me correctly, those signs were mounted on the columns for the bridge.
Hmm.
Right now, there's no signs right there on those columns.
Or was it up on the covering?
I honestly don't remember seeing them, but I don't think I'd like the idea of putting more signage on the bridge.
I'm with
The
you.
8'6" sign is, I think, very necessary, but I'd like to keep it as clean as possible.
Well, it makes such a better photograph.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing that Bill mentioned was about enforcement. I was under the impression that we were not going to enforce the local traffic only.
How do you even enforce it? You know, it's
Well,
kind of.
that's what I'm saying is that I was listening to Vic and how we could get into trouble by enforcing it. So I thought we were kind of in agreement that we would not do so.
You kind of have to follow
This is Vic.
somebody.
Well, this
Go
is Vic. What I had suggested is that we establish the ordinance, and that would be a basis for both the signage and, if we chose, enforcement, but that we would do it really as a testing of the waters type of thing and be reviewed under a certain amount of time so that we can see if there's any empirical difference between our regulations without the local traffic and our regulations with the local traffic. That empirical difference is important in terms of whether or not the ordinance can demonstrate its legitimacy under some of the constitutional standards. At a minimum, doing it at a short-term basis shouldn't present any real problem, and the draft ordinance that we've prepared is explicit as to that. We're trying to bundle that with some of the other things that Bill had mentioned earlier in this conversation, and you'll have a chance to look at it and decide what you want to do come January. But we at least have something for your consideration, and you can decide at that point whether to do it and how aggressively to enforce it.
Yeah, it might get some attention if we coordinate with the sheriff and just have the sheriff present. I mean, we all know, I see it daily because I make a point to drive there from the south when I come to work. There's cut-through traffic that are trying to miss the 83 53 crossing signals, and they're trying to chase right out on 83 going north. And you see the reverse of it going back. So maybe staged police observation will have an impact on some of that traffic. People think, oh, geez, I could get pinched, because most of the people going through are not going there to buy something downtown. They're going through to get to work. And if they know that somebody is watching, visibly watching, it may have an effect to get those people off. I mean, it's not that much more time to go around, but the perception that 83 53 light, if you don't catch it right, is a pretty long delay. And if you're in a hurry, this is an attractive cut through, but it's not necessarily a safe cut through, especially during the daytime when you have pedestrians and people at the intersection walking through. And so it's a worthy initiative. I think it's a justifiable ordinance to consider, because I think there is a bona fide safety hazard when the village is busy periodically.
Hey, Bill, let me pipe in here, because I don't know that I agree with cut-through traffic being an issue, because the business owners, they want people going by their buildings, right? So it's the truck traffic that we're trying to prevent. And the fact that Denise is here too, that she's made, and Google's actually listened to us. She sent some pictures of the school bus stuck in the bridge, et cetera. But by having that local only traffic sign, they can do some stuff to prevent buses and trucks going through there. So Denise, I don't know if you want to comment on that, but I thought that was the bigger thing that we were trying to address.
Yeah.
Yeah, I spoke with Peter Schoenfeld again from Lake County GIS Mapping Division, and he connected me with Eric Kolb from he runs the data submission program at Google. And what he already put in place was a bus restriction. He immediately did that, which is great. So that's from the intersection of Old McHenry Road, RPC to 53 RPC. And then what he said he's going to do for us, if we send pictures of the local traffic only signage, he will put in place something called a travel through restriction, and that will limit all routing for any vehicle onto that section of the road unless the destination basically can only be reached by, that road. So we just have to send in a photo once, and it looks like that signage will be in place on Thursday. So we could take a photo and send that in just kind of as, I wasn't sure about the ordinance part though, like how quickly we want that in place, if we need to wait for the ordinance. But so, they've moved on this very quickly. They've been super helpful. So it's been great.
I want your magic.
A picture's worth 1,000 words.
In terms
Yeah.
of about how quickly the enforcement would start, we wouldn't do any enforcement unless and until we have an ordinance in place. That's not going to be inclusive of putting up the signs in anticipation of it.
But we could put the sign up as soon as we get it.
Correct. Just not enforce it unless and until we adopt
Yeah.
the ordinance.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Bill, the point you raise seems to me to be a very good point. If I was a shopkeeper, I don't want to teach people to go around the village. I want people to remember that Long Grove is open and that Long Grove is more than happy to take their money. And you get that with cut through traffic. They don't always cut through. Sometimes, I would hope some of them stop. I was talking to a client of mine today who was talking about restaurants that they're patronizing for carry-out purposes, help keep them open. And I said, we've got the same, everybody has the same problem. Here's what we're doing in Long Grove. She said, I forgot that Long Grove was there. And I'm like, she can't be the only person in the world who would make that comment. And the bridge was closed for so long. I think a lot of people maybe saw that the bridge signs saying it was closed are now down. But once you teach people to just keep circumnavigating rather than going through, that's what they do. And I'm wondering if we're not, shooting ourselves in the foot here.
Rita, they probably won't see the sign.
But the other, probably, there's probably a lot of truth to that. But the question I had raised previously, and I'm not sure we got an answer on it from anybody, is does designating that as local traffic only, does that hurt us in any way for any sort of federal or state funding in the future? Is there an impact? Does anybody know? Did anybody have a chance to research that? If not, I'll research
I
it.
think there's a legal
We could
memo
address that
from
in a
Vic.
memo.
Yeah.
And I can point that to you separately. I'll send you another copy of it, Rita.
Yeah,
You
he
already-
documented it.
We already have one, you're saying?
Yeah, Vic did it. Yeah,
Okay,
he's got an opinion he rendered. So
okay, well, I'll look it up.
And
then.
what about
Go ahead.
What about putting a pretty sign that says historic downtown Long Grove with an arrow over there on 53? I mean, at some point, we're supposed to be getting those monuments that would be replacing the three signs that say, historic downtown Long Grove, where we put the sign underneath it on the hooks that say for the specific the festivals and their dates. I don't think the historic downtown is looking to proceed on this very quickly now with less in the coffers, but they've been designed. That was submitted to Dave Ledspike. Somewhere along the line, that just kind of fell through the cracks. But there would be those three. They are at Old McHenry and 53, 83 and RPC, and 22 and RPC. But then we could have another little sign that says historic downtown Long Grove this way. That way, if someone is being routed past it, people see, a lot of people see signs. Some people definitely don't. But, that might draw their attention and, hey, I want to check that out. I see signs all the time and I go look up what's going on, and my next trip to that place, I often get it in my itinerary.
Amy, thanks for that comment. I don't know where that's at. But something we'll have to look at, where, because that was being led by the HDLGBA.
Yeah, well, it was last in Dave's hands. And
Yeah, the last time I
don't
talked to
know.
Dave, he said he didn't have anything. So, but we'll have to go back and figure out, where that's at. If Ryan has the information or whatever, maybe they can resend it. They could send it to me. That would be awesome.
Excellent. Right. I don't think they're ready to be doling out the money, but
Right.
hopefully with a successful next year, then maybe we can do that next fall.
Absolutely. But back to the, thanks, Amy. Back to the thing, the task at hand. I think, this local traffic thing was more, I thought, to deal with trucks, to try to get it so that you automatically don't get routed through there as a truck driver. Not necessarily to prevent cars from going through. So I know we're sort of just going to experiment here a little bit, but if somebody disagrees with me, let me know. But that's what I thought we were trying to accomplish with the local only traffic thing.
I
I
think
thought
you're
so
right
as
on,
well.
Bill. I think
Yeah.
you're right on.
So we were successful, Denise was successful in getting no buses. Why can't we do the same thing with trucks and scrap this whole local traffic only?
They said they
sign?
needed it. They said they needed the local traffic only for that, right?
Google
Yeah, they
does.
did say they would not, for some reason, they do not have the same ability for trucks as they do for buses. And the
Okay.
only way to do this is the travel through restriction.
Okay.
But it was the picture of the bus and the bridge that instantly that went into place. So I love it when you send, it's like, can you send them a picture? It said it all, right? Because otherwise they think we're whining, right? Look at that picture. The
You know,
bus stuck on the bridge.
we really are playing with like a two-edged sword. We don't
Right.
want the trucks, but we want the cars. The
Right.
sign would suggest to the cars and the trucks that we don't want either.
Yeah, but people that are using Google, they're renting, they're in a U-Haul. They don't even know they're driving a truck, right? They're just following what Google is telling them to do. So,
Okay.
I hate to say it, but we are probably going to lose some car traffic, but
Mhm.
we have to divert the traffic around it if we're going to protect that bridge, because people seem to be idiots.
Seem to be.
Well,
Locals
it's just, I cannot believe every time I drive by that darn bridge, now it's going to be fixed, but it just looks like feathered.
Yeah, it does.
It shouldn't look that way anymore because all those boards are gone, right? And all there is that piece of steel. So
Yeah.
it should look a lot different. So.
It's fixed.
And apropos Jenny's comment, you cannot legislate stupid.
No, you cannot.
We're trying though. but,
So are the boards back in place, or is it just a steel at this point?
President Bill, I sent you over a picture courtesy of Trustee O'Connor that she took this afternoon of the east side of the bridge. Going back to pictures worth 1,000 words, that side of the bridge is complete. Don't know if you.
I will share my screen right now.
To West Side also.
There you go. Voila.
Nice.
Great.
Wow.
So there's the east side of the bridge. The west side of the bridge is 95% done. As Bill Balling mentioned, they've got to finish up some work tomorrow, which is putting the trim on the west side.
Mhm.
So I studied this. The steel is right here. You can't even see it. And then
Yeah,
the
it really
steel
came out
stops right
nice.
there and rounds out. This turned out really nice.
Yeah,
Looks
it really
great.
did.
Chuck did a good job.
Way to go, Chuck.
Way to go,
You know,
Chuck.
you guys wouldn't let me put the machine gun nest in. I had to go to some other. You know?
All right. So
I
can we
hope
keep-
this works and does the job for us. I really do.
Can we keep ourselves moving here? Are we good with the
Yeah.
bridge for a little bit?
Yeah, no, it looks great.
All right.
Can I mention one thing?
Oh,
But
please. Yes.
Not on the bridge. Right before the meeting started, I sent you everybody the Historic District Long Grove Business Association 2021 budget.
Mhm.
Oh, so
So
we
we've
got the
been
budget.
waiting for that.
Okay,
And,
Excellent.
and Dave Gayton got it to Jesse. And so I sent it on. So that's part of what they need to provide.
excellent. Thanks for getting
What
that.
else do they still owe us?
I'm trying to, I think there were 3 things and I can't remember what they were.
Okay.
Yeah, the budget, how they spent the money. There's some reporting that they need to give us. I don't have it up in front of me, but we'll,
The biggie was the budget.
And the other one was the special tax roll for the
Mhm.
SSA, which we did approve last time and we're not able to change at this point.
Right.
excellent. All right, thanks for that update. Bill, I'm going to ask you, there's several other items here. Do we need to talk about anything? Snow removal 2021. It doesn't expire, it expires after the season. So for Lester's on the snow removal, I know that you're trying to set up a meeting with the Lake County Sheriff, Chris, so we're trying to get that meeting set up to get a discussion going to get something in front of the board for perhaps approval, right?
Yeah, that's an April contract renewal, but for budget purposes, we should certainly get that back to the board in for your January meeting cycles. So it's just we've got to get the we want to have a preliminary meeting with the sheriff and the team here to do that. So
Okay. Any other items that we need to talk
I
about?
did, in addition to meeting with Lester, we did place the order for our salt and it's being delivered, I think, this week. So,
Got it. Do we have to approve that as a board or?
no, you did already. You passed a resolution. We buy joint purchase through through Lake County.
Okay, so you
And
just
so
bought
we
this off.
authorized it and we actually authorized more than that, but that's the first tranche of salt that we'll have. So, and hopefully it'll be enough.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Okay. We do have, let's see, the building report, there's a special line item for it. Report of the engineer, there's a special line item for it. Are there any other trustee reports that are not covered? Because if not, we can move on to the next section, which I'm going to put you a little bit to work, Bill, on these next 2.
Can I add one thing?
Oh, please do, yes.
Because it's a road situation. I noticed particularly this evening, driving on Old 53, how truly ugly the properties, a lot of the properties along that road are. There is one in particular that probably has, it's on the north side of 53. It probably has 15 vehicles and all kinds of equipment that is readily, easily visible from the road. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on there.
So Bill, we, a resident came to me last week. So I think it's 1139 Route 53.
That's the property.
And I just remember that from the email. So you have that on your list. I did drive it over the weekend too. I drove by and I saw all those cars there. There's a couple other ones that need to be addressed. So
But it's more than vehicle cars. It's
yeah, tractors and junk.
it's a dump. And
Yeah.
and I was driving south on Old McHenry from Robert Parker Coffin, and all along the west side of the street, the properties are shambles. They have a ton of cars, and it just, the road looks outrageous. And then we've got the hoarder in Lake County, further down, closer to Geimers. He must have 35 vehicles on that property in all states of disrepair. Do we have any ordinances or anybody that?
Maybe we need bigger berms.
No, we have all that stuff if it's unlicensed cars and stuff like that. I mean, Jim Hope can probably explain it all and Bill can. But we have we have a code enforcement issue right now because we need to find out who can enforce the code, right?
Yeah, and I'm glad I forgot to mention that in the report. We have engaged discussions with Mundelein, and there is some interest. You know, we lost Buffalo Grove. They're going to finish that fence out on the 83 side that we heard about I think 2 meetings ago. They're going to take care of that guy in the flower factory or the flower farm. But anything going forward, we're going to get a proposal from Mundelein, take a look at it, and bring something back to the board. But we need an enforcement arm to deal with these property maintenance issues, and they are interested in looking at it, but they need some definition. The other thing we need to do is they don't really have an arborist or foresters on there available to us. So we're looking at a private company to deal with so many tree issues that we get deal with, tree nuisance issues and that. So that'll either be probably not Mundelein, but we'll ask them once again about that. But it'll be probably a private contractor that we'll take a look at to deal with that has some certifications, either as an arborist or a forester. But right now, we don't have an enforcement mechanism. It was Buffalo Grove for a few years, but they're out of the business. They're going 100% contracting, and they don't have capacity for us. And they did that through some attrition in their staffing. So let's see what Mundelein comes back with, how they've got a price. I mean, they're pretty good on the code enforcement side for us, but property maintenance is a little bit different issue. They have a property maintenance function in the village. And so they have some skill sets and certifications that would be helpful to us, but they're trying to figure out how much of a load they have to carry to get down here, because property maintenance inspections are basically time consuming, repeat inspections, progress reports, and a lot of times citations that all fit in. Mundelein is nice because they have the adjudication process. So the enforcement would be a little bit more efficient for us. But those are kind of our directions. And until we get something in place, we're basically don't have an enforcement arm right now.
I see. And do we ever check with communities who are south of us, like, or west of us? Deer Park, Killdeer, Peloton?
In terms of property maintenance?
Yeah, Lake Zurich, yeah.
Yeah, we could. I'm looking for what has been working with regard to, we have a pretty good relationship with Mundelein, and they've been pretty good on the code enforcement side. Give them a shot to at least price it out. There may be others. I mean, I don't think anybody's really pining to add that kind of load on their system. It would be depend what the economics are, because it's really a nuisance repetitive engagement that chews up a lot of time. Now, somebody's going to charge us for that, and how they charge it and how they price it is going to be yet to be seen. But if we wanted multiple vendors, we could. But I think Killdeer does. I believe Killdeer does use Lake Zurich right now, so they may or may not have some capacity available. I can give them a ring up and see what the deal is. But I know Killdeer doesn't have their own maintenance department, and to get somebody from Arlington to come up here, it's possible, but it would have to be attractive to them. And Mundelein's expressed an interest. That's a good thing.
Sure. Okay.
I'm not excluding Mundelein as a possibility, but I think we need to be looking at other options if they don't. And the thought occurs to me that Rita and I are in the same business, and we, people hire home inspectors all the time, and some of them, I mean, they're licensed, they're trained well, and I wonder if that's a possibility, to find a good private one that could do the unique inspections.
Yeah. I can check into that. I don't know who does. BNF might have an arm that does that, but we haven't had a great experience with BNF. I mean, they're sort of the category killers in terms of in this area, but there's a reason we left them. So I'll make some calls and find out if there's somebody out there.
I mean, I'm talking the guys that are 3 or 4 or 5 guys.
Right.
you know,
right.
in a company.
Yeah, yeah. The problem with property maintenance, I mean, sometimes you just have derelict property owners that are trying to get away with something, but there's a lot of sociology and psychology that goes into some of these things, because sometimes you run into hardship cases where people, there's a reason their property's in bad shape. They lost their job, they lost this, they have a health problem. And it's a time consuming process. I'm not discouraging it, but I'll make some calls and see what's going on, and specifically Kildare, because they're pretty good. But they don't have a builder. They contract out with theirs. So I'll bring something back for the board.
And I would hope that if it's a hardship issue, that we could once a year, take on a property and help the owner clean it up. Other towns do that. If we're going to create a community, that's a heck of a way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I can think of all kinds of people who would volunteer for something like that.
Yeah.
Well, there's one property that go ahead, Jim, if you want to talk. Jim, was that you?
I'm here. I'm not sure which property you're talking about, but it's the Gerba property.
I think so, yeah, where there's been a
We
judgment and a whole
have-
bunch of money owed
We have
us. And
levied fines against the property.
you got it.
One of these
Well, that's-
people that
that's-
is not going to comply. We've cleaned up his property on one occasion.
That's the house on the south side, though.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, it's
I
not.
thought that's the one you were talking about.
No.
There's
this-
another one on the north.
Well,
yeah.
I know about Gerber's. If this is on the north side, it's like maybe 50 feet west of where Old McHenry dead ends.
Since all the trees, all the leaves came off the trees, you can see
Right.
it now. That's what the
Right,
issue is.
exactly.
So-
No, wait a minute. Is that the one that's in the county?
No, it's not in
No.
the county. No, it's right. It's in the triangle. It's in the triangle. It's 1139.
Oh, I know which property you're
Yeah.
talking about. That's owned by, I can't think of his name right now.
I think it's 1137.
All right, Mel, you may have it better than I do, but I thought it was 1139. Whatever it is, it's right there. So
I think we might want to enforce berms.
Yes, big one.
well, so
Good answer.
we know we need to address it. Did we talk about it enough, or and maybe we can move on?
I'm
And I know.
finished. I'm
Yeah,
finished. Thank
well,
you.
So let's, if everyone's okay, let's
I've
keep
got
us.
one thing.
Sure.
I will be seeing a few of you December 14th when the window opens, or on the 21st when the window closes. If anybody can't make it at either of those times, just let me know and I can meet them over at Village Hall. This might be more for anybody who might be listening to this later, maybe not anyone who's present. I think you guys know the drill. But
It's 9
we'll, of
o'clock.
course, say that again.
Is it 9 o'clock?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock?
Yep.
Why, yes.
8 o'clock.
So
Yep.
you'll
and
be there
then
at 8
for the
o'clock in the
closing-
morning?
Yep.
All right.
And well, that 8 o'clock is if you want to make sure that you're the first on the ballot. Thus far, this will be my third at bat. I've never had to do a lottery. Love to not have to do one. But if there's a battle about who wants to be at the top of the ticket, be there at 8, and whoever is standing there at 8 in the morning will be in the lottery. Otherwise, if you know the order you want to be in, then just, I will be there from, say, 8 to 9 is kind of when I'm supposed to be there. And then 4 to 5, on the 21st, when the window closes. Anybody who shows up between 4 and 5 would then be in the lottery. As it come up on an email, you bring in your petitions, signed and notarized, your statement of candidacy, and your statement of economic interest. And that's it. Tomorrow I have a Zoom to go through the thing again, but like I said, my third at bat. Just going to make sure I hadn't forgotten anything.
All
I'm
right,
done.
I need to check my schedule if I can get there at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I'll find, I can't see it now, so I'll look later. So. no
And
worries.
well, maybe somebody is going to run against you, but I think you're probably going to be alone in this, so it doesn't really matter. You're at the top of the ticket no matter what.
No, I
after
just want to
that.
make sure I get in there on the first day. That's all. I don't really care where you put me. So I want to get in there and get it done. So, yep. Thank you.
Okay. I will see you on the 14th then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks.
All right. Bill, I'm going to put you to work now. There's 2 items on the agenda. One of them is the property and casualty policy that went down. It was in the board packet, but now it's not. So maybe you're going to have to take us through that. So.
Okay, well, the item 8 on the agenda is the resolution authorizing binding of coverage for our, I call it our comprehensive business policies, but actually it's our it's our proper casualty and workman's comp policies. We did have a good news story from Arthur Gallagher Insurance, which is our broker. They really present about a 3.5% reduction in rate. The economic value of the policies combined is $40,457. This is a renewal issue. As you know, when we have the brokers, they shop around and provide the best assessment of the market and provide us with recommendations. This looks really good. It's the components of coverage were at one point attached on the Google Drive, and apparently they're not there at this point. But this is a good comprehensive policy. It's going to reduce our price about $1,900, and I would recommend its approval as presented.
Questions? It's the same policy.
This is Vic. There is one blank that needs to be completed. The policy materials showed 2 options. Wasn't clear to us which of the 2 gave that price, so we do need to complete that in let's see what that was. It's in section 2, 3rd line of the resolution.
Oh yeah, the liability package. Yes. Hold on, because I had that marked.
Dick, when it says equipment breakdown, what does that mean exactly? Is that it?
I haven't looked at the details of these policies.
We got like
Usually
2
it's-
wagons or something. I don't even know what those are. So.
Yeah, well, usually if you have some critical equipment that's listed, usually in the endorsement, if there's a breakdown, you'll get some benefit, much like if you have a car accident, you get a loaner. It's the same kind of thing there, but I'm not sure of the specifics of these policies.
Yeah, we do insure 2 trailers.
Trailers, not
and
wagons,
They're
yes,
actually
thank you.
managed by the fire district, but they're one's a stake body and one's an enclosed. Yeah. Vic, I had that marked and I do not find the option choice for the village. I'm sorry. That was one that I had noted here, but I do not. Do you remember where that was located? Because I was
Page 43 of the PDF.
okay. Thank you.
I'm not finding this stuff online right now, so I'm fumbling myself.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously, this is the client authorization bind coverage. This is the general liability property, including inland marine, excess liability, auto, and professional liability. Option 1 is a $1,000 property deductible that we can purchase for $30,340. Option 2 is a $2,500 deductible premium, which we can purchase for $29,703. I recommend option 2 because our exposure is relatively low, and I would think we should grab the money and the premium savings.
And that's what we had last year, right?
Yes. Yeah, we haven't had $1,000 deductible for a while.
Okay.
Current is the 2,500.
So it's the same.
Option 2. Yeah.
It's option 2. It's the same policy as we've approved last year.
Okay.
It's lower in cost.
Yep.
I did look at it over the weekend, so I know it was there.
Yeah.
So any
yeah.
questions?
Yeah, it was a good news story for us. You never really know where, you're going to end up in the insurance markets today, but this worked out pretty well for us.
Questions? If not, a motion to approve the resolution?
I motion we approve the resolution for insurance proposal authorization to bind coverage and client services agreement with Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services, Inc.
Moved by trustee O'Connor, seconded by
Second.
trustee Michaud. Roll call, please.
Trustee Borowski,
Yes.
trustee O'Reilly,
Aye.
trustee Nora,
Aye.
trustee O'Connor,
Aye.
and trustee Misha.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, motion carried. The next one is the renewal of the healthcare program. I'm going to let you, Bill, set this up too, and I'll help you with whatever graphics you want me to present. So
Yeah, we use a different broker for our health insurance than Gallagher. We use J. Krug and Company and Associates. They've put together a pretty decent package for us. We have a difficult small pool to insure. We actually have, right now, we have one of our employees that is opted out of the insurance and gets it through her husband's policy. So we're really now, with Dave leaving, we're really down to 2 insureds. One is an individual coverage and the other one is a family coverage. And there's a pretty substantial difference between the two. What has been presented to us is a renewal of the Blue Cross policies for about a 5% increase in premium costs. And those premium costs are shared on an 80-20 basis, with the employees paying 20% and the village paying 80% of the premium. So there's some support present from the participants in the study. The only issue of change is that Blue Cross changed their PPO structure, that they want more self-insurance at the front end, the initial claims. And that causes rise for when there are claims to be paid. They want more of that to be paid by the member, if you will. Rather, when I say the member, the account of the village and how we split it is up to us as a first dollar out. And part of that is done just on general insurance management and wise consumer practices to use medical services when you need to, but don't use them. It's not overly generous, because the package that's set up has got, that's a good one there. This is the employee only, which is easy to understand. The employee plus is with the family coverage, but our present plan has the employee paying out of pocket $1,400. First $1,400 that go out the door on the employee. Then the village in the blue box pays the next $4,300 without any support from the insurance company at that point. And then the employee bounces back to pay an additional $850 before insurance starts to kick in. So that's the structure of our existing plan. What the broker has recommended in the Blue Cross program, and they said it's really not a negotiable thing with us if we want to stay with this carrier and the PPO system, is they want to get more increase. They want to get more increases. So I put 3 scenarios together that we need to pick one in order to bind this coverage. One would have the village pay for the increase that the blue requirement requires. And that would move in this situation our cost from $4,300 to $4,650. The second one, which is the green bar, is we lay that all off on the employees, and that increases their employee share from $850 to $1,200. And the third, which is sort of the salmon bar, says, well, let's split is that the split one? I'm sorry. Yeah, shared risk. And that is, that has us both sharing in some of that additional cost. And I think overall, from a fairness standpoint, that's probably the best program. But I mean, this is up to the village board to determine how they'd like to proceed. But it does have a lot of front end cost exposure, which means, you know, if you have one hospitalization would clean that out, but it's more the maintenance and the immediate care that people, the concept of the self-insurance at the front end is people need to think about it because they have some interest in managing those costs. Those dollars are only paid out on a claims basis. So, other than this shift, which is more dollars out, it's basically the same program that we operate on this year. So I think with
And I've shown you the family plan now too. So just.
Oh yeah. Family plans and numbers get bigger. It's the same principle, but the numbers get bigger.
Right.
And I use the, you're paying right now, the family comes up with the first $2,800, and then the village is on for the next $6,500, and then the employee responsibility falls back to $38,000. So there's quite a load on the employees under a family coverage, and we have one of those in the system. And I'm recommending that we budget for 2 of those because we have to anticipate the village manager, whoever he or she will be, may come to us with dependents that will need insurance coverage. And then the same methodology applies, but it just becomes bigger numbers. These programs are age-based too, so it influences what the rate is, and the details of the proposal show a per person and per dependent age factor in the development of the premiums. So this entire package in terms of a premium total for the year is $67,300, of which the employees will pay 20% of that amount. That's just on the premium load, and that compares to a $63,629 premium that was charged in total for everybody this year. I will tell you on a standpoint of marketing, as your new manager comes on board and employee satisfaction, there's a lot of support for the participants in the Blue Cross program and not needing to change and alter medical relationships in order to achieve that. This will require, depending on which one you pick, more money out in the front end of the employee's pocket for the high deductible plan and the self-insurance at the front end of the program. But I think overall it's a realistic and a program that is going to be easy to market for, because the Blue tradition is really good as we market for our new manager. I think the employees support this, and I think the overall premium structure is fair. When we talked to Krug and Associates, I said, well, what should we expect? She says, well, just placing small group insurance is really a challenge by itself because it doesn't have any play in it. And if there's one dependent aging out, changes the impact, or one new dependent coming on, it changes the impact on the rates. But she said it would not, she has written many policies this year that are more, that anything below 10%, she says, is a real bargain. And this comes in as about 5%. And I just did a couple of call arounds with agents that I know that I've worked with in the past, and they confirm that if you can get a small group growth at 5% premium growth, you're doing a pretty good job. So I would recommend the approval of the renewal of the Blue program. And if you ask me for a recommendation, I would recommend that the village pick up the additional self-insurance at the front end, but that's clearly a decision for the village to make. And I make that on the premise that the front end insurance gets very expensive, especially for the family units. I mean, that's a lot of cash that goes out for before any insurance kicks in. So it's the design is really beneficial if you have a catastrophic loss. But if you have a maintenance type exposure, you better have several $1,000s in the bank to cover those shortfalls, because you can be paying every bill for a while. And then the village picks up a good chunk of that as well to maintain that rate structure. So that's sort of the overview. And if I can answer any questions for the board, I could feel free to do so at this time.
I have two questions, and insurance is probably my very least favorite subject. But seeing the output for the employee, is there a way that the village can have a savings plan so that an employee can build a savings that the village would hold, so that in the event they need that, they have that?
Well, the HRA, the Health Reimbursement Program, does provide that mechanism. So that is, I'd say that's already in play. And
does anybody utilize it?
Everyone does right now,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I think everybody does. I think I believe there's tax advantages to getting that money in. So people try to use it.
I'm on one from work. I'm on a high deductible HSA program at work. So
yeah,
I've been on one for a long time.
Yeah.
So you have like a savings fund.
Yep.
Right. You
You
put
take
money
money
automatically
automatically out of your
away.
account. Yeah, and you put it in there.
Okay. And then secondly, I'm surprised that whether the Lake County Municipal League or Illinois Municipal League doesn't coordinate an insurance group.
Like a pool, that's more
Yeah.
like, so,
Yeah.
well, there are some of those that are out there. I did not include that in the scope of this renewal, but there are some risk management companies. Some of them don't raise their revenues real fairly. Some of them do it on assessed value. Some of them, it's not, this is really sort of a traditionally structured insurance program that's age-based and small member based. But the feedback I've gotten of late, I think those have declined in popularity because a lot of them are based on revenue. As a matter of fact, that has carried into the, matter of fact, there's one pool that, and it might be an IML pool. It works for some of the towns that are way out south and kind of the same and sort of, I don't want to say impoverished, but low assessed value, but they still have to cover the nut in terms of what it is, but they use a different approach, and then they have a self-governing structure generally. It can be good and it can be bad in terms of how the mechanics of that work. I haven't heard too many complaints from the people that are using this system, which I've only talked to 2 of our workforce because I only got 2 on the system. They like the idea from a standpoint of not needing to change and not needing to change their physician relationships and that, which often occur when you go into a different group altogether. So
Okay,
we got on our side as well. You have some that's supportive.
thanks.
Rita, it looks like you want to say something.
No, I was saying that's exactly right. When you get into the pools through the commercial groups, ICML or the NAR, whatever, you don't get to choose your physician. Oftentimes they'll switch you to another group or another set of hospitals, providers, blah, blah, blah. So Blue Cross Blue Shield is a really quality program. As long as our people like it, I'm good with it.
Right, and we changed the structure of the program last year. So this is exactly, I see Mike Sarletto out there, so I know this is his hot button. It's the same structure. And so now the only difference is, because of the way this premium set up, they want more risks to be assumed by the village or the employee.
Well, by the subscriber, and they don't care how we split it.
Okay.
And I just showed it like a shared example could be another formula, but they just need that money covered. And either the village or the employees or some blending of the two, they just need that much self-insurance at the front end.
So the premium itself went up about 5%. And then this middle area, which I just took down, is either going to be paid for more by the employee or more by us, right? But it's only used if you get there, right? So it's
Yeah,
only
it's all claims based. It's not it's not like a premium, or it's not something you pay out so you got a chance of saving it. And the other thing I did in this analysis, I did use Dave's family group, which again, every member is priced because of their dependents and their ages. You might find someone you hire. I mean, that's not why you hire the person, but it may work out. This is presented more of a worst case basis for a group, but I would anticipate that your group maximum going into next year would be 3, and for sure 1 family unit, and then maybe 2 family units, but still continuing 1 single, which is, that's a good thing. Singles are pretty affordable.
Yeah, Mike, go ahead. I know you're the
Just one
healthcare expert.
question. What is the current village to employee split on the HSA contribution?
Well, the premium is 80-20 on the split, and on the participation going down, I presented 3 scenarios, but let's take one that's the employee only. You'd have a $2,250 exposure for the employees and a $4,300 exposure for the village. So 2 to 1, maybe, little less than that, a little tighter than that.
So one of the rub points in the past has been that first dollar out. Well, we say it's the employee's responsibility. By contributing to an HSA, the village is actually contributing to those dollars that are being spent, number one. And number 2, dollars vested by the village into that HSA are carried over. So they become a savings account essentially for those employees. They keep that money.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that that's the way that this current plan is operating, because I think the concept is you're on the hook as a employee for this much money. If you want to feed it through on your payroll through the to create an HSA kitty, that's good. But I know there was about 2 years ago, there was a program where there was a fair amount of pre-funded money that was rollover money, but that's not how this plan is set up. I think we got away from that. I think we did a pretty healthy discussion last year, as I understand, that went away. So
that was the point.
Let me just ask Vic if he's got.
The first dollar in every claim was paid by the village to the HSA. The second dollar on every claim was paid by the village through their contribution. The third, we got to the point where the village was paying for every layer of payments being made for every claim processed. And I, as a trustee, had a difficult time with that. And so we negotiated the contributions, just so the board understands the whole HSA structure is a contribution the village makes to that employee. And it is, number 1, pays out claims, and number 2 is the benefit that carries with them. So it is truly compensation. And the 80-20 split that we're talking about is how much the village has decided to pay into the HSA, pre-tax, free money to the employees. So I was just curious with the workers' comp, what's our mod rate? Do you know offhand, or Bill?
I don't know what the workman's comp rate is. I do know that we haven't had many claims, and that was actually the biggest driver to reduce our premium was in the workman's comp area. But I don't have the figure. I was cheerful when I saw that reduction.
when you saw the reduction, yeah, and that's the other thing. An issue that we had in the past is where we were benchmarking our mod rate. If we're under one, then that's fine, but we shouldn't be compared to those that may have utility workers that are out on a road and everything
Right,
else.
right. These are administrative rated. Yeah, these have to be administrative rated folks. And I did talk to Gallagher about that. I says, look, you've got to, these are not public works workers that get injured frequently.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
End of comment. Thanks.
No,
Okay.
thanks, Mike, for piping in.
I do have a question. Bill, you mentioned something that caught my ear. You said that when you talked to Krug, you said something like, if the village wants to stay with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Have you quoted this thing competitively with anybody else beside Blue Cross?
No, they presented the recommendation as a renewal. And I thought it was the numbers looked pretty good. And I have not, I asked them, I said, well, what's your recommendation? They says, look, we got this at a 5% growth. We think that's a great rate. And we know it's a very good program. So I didn't say I didn't go back and try it again, but they are informed as agent brokers in the health insurance market. And, they indicated that, look, this is a really hard group to insure. And you got a good company, and you've got what they believe is a very market competitive rate. Fortunately, we haven't had a lot of big claims. And again, that's the wild card of these things. When you get, two participants, one big claim the following year, you'll get tanked on it. And it's one of the challenges of running a small group insurance. But they felt pretty strong that the renewal option was the way to go.
I mean, I've got to ask just kind of I'm philosophical today. If we're spending 67 grand a year on insurance premiums for essentially 2 employees, why don't we just cut them a check for 20 grand a piece and drop the health insurance completely?
Well, that's, and that's an issue. When you look at it, you say, well, where are we going to go with this? Because
Sarlitos laughed it over there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Now, the issue, part of the issue is we hope to hire this spring a new village manager, and it's expected that a guy's going to come with, or gal is going to come with the protection of insurance provided by the employer. I mean, that's the benchmark for certainly most municipal employees, but certainly almost all city managers are going to require that. We may have another one of those coming up in a couple of years. So as a marketing tool, to say we're going to give you a pool and you shop for your own insurance, that's an option. I don't think it's a good option in 2021 because we've got a recruitment, we'll have an active recruitment underway. And I basically say this is a pretty
Understand your point. Understand your point, Bill. You don't need to continue on that path. Understand your point completely.
Okay.
On the other hand, my flippant comment is we are part of government, and isn't government the one that created the Affordable Care Act?
Yeah.
Okay. Enough said. I'm a little disappointed that we didn't competitively bid this thing.
Well, I don't want to say it wasn't. Oh, I'm sorry. The broker assured me. I said, look, I said, did you check with prices? We've used you guys for several years now.
Mm-hmm.
Have you done your market assessment? And then I didn't remarket it, but once I had it, I called a couple of, I actually called my personal insurance carrier, and I says, are these guys on track? And they said, well, for what you got to insure, you got a pretty good deal. And then I just got an inkling from another carrier that I've previously worked with. I did not quote it, but I felt assured these are people that wouldn't steer me incorrectly, that the broker did their job this year for us. So, but I understand your point. I would, I'd love to be in a position where we could say we've got we're going to completely outsource to the workforce our insurance, but it's going to be a tough thing to recruit on.
Understood. Thank you.
If everyone's okay with approving the renewal of the Blue Cross Blue Shield program, we would just need to decide how much additional the employee pays, if any at all. So, assuming that that's that middle portion, right? I should say it this way, right? How much risk will they take or we take? Because that's what that really is, right?
Yeah, well, right now, for sure, they're in for 20% of the premium. So that's an outlay every month. That's to help us with the premium. And then the self-insurance component would vary depending on, you know, where you wanted to, what kind of options that you were looking to finish on. You know, could push their last tranche from like $800 to $1,200 on a single. It's a lot of money. You know, when you're paying 20% and then you're self-insuring for, you know, several thousand. Again, it's hard with a small group to say, well, you know, it's not like, you know, we're doing the public works and the building department and everything else, and it kind of gets clouded in what the program is. These are, this is basically a tailored and, you know, a village offered program that really impacts at this point 2, and likely in 2021 will impact three workers, and 1 for sure. And I did query that, and 1 for sure says, no, I've got good insurance with my husband. I'm going to stay with that. So, and then any other new people that might come down the line in the future would, you know, that could change it a little bit, but we'll have to see how that plays out.
I vote for option 3.
The shared risk?
Yeah.
Salmon.
Okay.
Salmon. I like salmon
for dinner.
Yeah.
Anybody else have an opinion? Bobby, you're muted.
That's why I keep talking and no one listens.
Surely we listened to you, Bobby. Come on.
We were reading lips.
Salmon.
Salmon. All right.
Okay.
Split the difference. Everybody else, an opinion?
I'm good with it.
All right, splitting the salmon. Okay.
Yeah, I think splitting it makes the most sense.
Jenny?
I'm gonna say yellow, but I'll vote. I'll be fine with salmon.
Okay.
But I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat fish, so.
All right. Would somebody be kind enough to make a motion for salmon?
Okay,
Don't-
I'll move it, but I don't know how to word it. So
I would say the motion is to approve the resolution as presented using the figures set forth in option 3 in the proposal.
thank you.
Second.
Okay, moved by trustee Borowski, seconded by trustee O'Reilly. Roll call, please.
Trustee Michaud,
Aye.
Trustee O'Connor,
Aye.
Trustee Nora,
Aye.
Trustee O'Reilly,
Aye.
and Trustee Borowski.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. I very much appreciate it.
Thanks, Bill.
Just a post comment on the recruitment. There's a lot
Yes.
of people out there that are perfectly fine with private insurance.
Thanks, trustee, former trustee Sarletto. So appreciate it. The next item on the agenda is consideration of a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement related to hosting a clothing and textile collection receptacle and shoe reuse program by Long Grove here with the Solid Waste Agency of Lake County. This is, we talked about this at the last meeting. I think we're looking at it, putting it in the Archer parking lot. It's the least creepy option according to some people and most visible. So any conversation, or does somebody want to make a motion to approve the resolution? We've talked about it now for a few meetings.
No, but I'll make the motion, but I just want clarification first, or maybe just a comment. We weren't planning on implementing the shoe recycling program, just the textile, because shoe is actually a little bit different in scope.
Got it.
My understanding is that shoes require an attendant to actually sit there and pair the shoes up and make sure they're banded properly and throw them in a cardboard box. So something that the village hall could do once it's rolling again. It's not a shoe collection box sitting in a parking lot. So it's strictly textiles that we want to implement now.
Yeah, if I might jump in on that. If you look at that part of the resolution, we're saying that we are approving the general program, but it's subject to getting a volunteer or volunteers to actually implement it. So, if we have somebody in the village who wants to go about it, we don't have to revisit this with the board.
Perfect.
It's something that we could have them go forward, but the forms, as you might recall, Chris, are something that the volunteers have to complete in order to have it all happen. This is just to set it in motion, not to actually do it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, then then I'll move the approval of the contract resolution.
All right, moved by trustee Borowski, seconded by
Second,
trustee Micho. Roll call, please.
Trustee Borowski,
Yes.
trustee O'Connor.
Yes.
I'm sorry, O'Reilly would be next. O'Reilly,
Yes.
thank you. Trustee Nora,
Yes.
trustee O'Connor,
Yes.
and trustee Micho.
yes.
All right, motion carried. Thank you.
Would one of the bills let the fire department know that we're doing this?
Walt was on here, by the way, too, but he's gone now. Okay, got it. We can.
Be nice to have them keeping an eye on it.
Was there some trailer sitting back there? Did they have some equipment back there last weekend? Did anyone notice that? All right, maybe it's just me. Okay, all right. I thought they had some equipment back there, parked back there, but who knows? Report of the village engineer, Jeff Perry.
All right. So just I was on the agenda. I'll take just a couple minutes here. We already talked about North Kruger Road and the bridge. So like Bill Walling said earlier, the bridge will be done by the close of business tomorrow. I reported last week or at the last board meeting, Huber Road was done and complete. I would like to spread the good news that the construction final cost is going to come in about 10% below the budget. So that's a good thing. As we talked about earlier, that's contractor got paid for what they did. So that is certainly good news for the village. The one thing that I did want to also highlight, item 13 on my report. This is the IDOT channelization project, which is the widening at Old Hicks. We've had some considerable discussion about the drain tiles over there. And previously, IDOT had agreed to replace the 2 drain tiles that were impacted by their construction from right of way to right of way. So the extent of their property, if you will. Last week, IDOT came back and they said, no, we're not going to do that. We are only going to put manholes where the damage occurred. So it can be monitored in case those drain tiles cease to operate, what have you. I went out there yesterday and looked at those drainage structures, and the one specifically to the south of 3255 Mayflower Lane, which is the Trackman residence, is full of water, which indicates to me the drain tile is not working on the state property. So I am going to go back to the state and let them know that and see where they react from there. I'm going to have some discussions with Bill Balling as far as how to approach that or how far we should push on that. Vic may opine on that as well, but in my opinion, that's a little less than something that addresses or even solves the problem. So I did want to let everybody know that. And then also,
Are you keeping in touch with all of the people that are involved in this?
Mark Trackman calls me regularly to what's going on over there, and IDOT true to form gave me notice on Friday and then said, by the way, our contractor is going to be out there today if you didn't know. And I said, oh, thanks for the notice. So I have yet to circle back with Mark about the completed work and what I saw out there yesterday.
Mark Trackman's in the hospital with COVID.
Oh, okay.
He went in on Sunday, just FYI.
Oh, sorry to hear that. Okay.
Me too. But
Well,
Okay.
I guess my point, Jeff, is
Yeah.
these kind of things, when people don't know what's going on, it festers.
Sure.
And so unless you over communicate with them, they don't think you do enough.
Noted. Yep. And over communicating is a hard thing to achieve.
I know. I know, but I'm just saying it
Okay.
makes them, you know, all it is, you've just got an email list and you shoot it out to the group and let them know, you know, what's going on. And my second question is, did you take a picture of the water?
I did.
Great.
Vic, do we have any recourse on this? I mean, you know, this is in many ways, this is unconscionable. IDOT said we will replace the drain tile. Clearly, they destroyed it in putting the road in. Tragman's underwater, losing all those trees. And then, you know, well, yeah, we'll replace it. No, we're not going to replace it. Do we have any recourse?
This is one of those situations that, A, we don't have any impact because none of our property is affected by this. And we don't have any jurisdiction over IDOT. The most we can do, and I think that Jeff has been very mindful of this, and Dave, and I hope Bill or Bill now and Dave before him have also been conscious of the fact that our best ability to help is being a bit of an ombudsman and trying to communicate, as Jeff has been you know, kind of charged with doing. But there's a underlying risk that we don't want to become the focal point of this because we can't do anything except, you know, try to help the players meet. We can't force IDOT to do anything, and we can't solve the problem for any of the individuals because those are private problems, not village-related problems. And there's a no good deed goes unpunished aspect that could creep in here if we're not careful.
I'm well aware of that. Absolutely. I guess maybe I should have phrased the question better, was when a public entity, in essence, says, we will replace the drain tile. While it's not in writing, is that not a verbal contract?
No, generally it is not. And even if it were in writing from some high muckety muck at IDOT, it probably would not be binding because it can only be binding when the appropriate authorities approve it in the appropriate manner. And there's case law that says everyone is expected to know who's the appropriate authority and how the appropriate manner is, whether they do or not. So the notion of a implied contract or even an express contract that hasn't been approved in accordance with appropriate procedures just doesn't bind.
Oh, that's awful. Okay, thank you.
Can I continue on, Jeff? Yep, thank you. Any other questions for Engineer Jeff Perry?
Thanks, Jeff, for following up.
Thank you. Review of the building commissioner. I think, Chuck, is this your report or is this Bill's?
Well, I know this is a continuation of the data summary that I know the board and Chuck directly are growing tired of. I want to turn this into something that's more meaningful from a policy standpoint before I take off out of here. But rather than not reporting, I asked for the continuation of this report until we can sort it out and come up with something that's more relevant. I know the focus on what's our return, what's the business model look like with regard to the monies that we're collecting and the monies we're spending out. This got a little more complicated this month because of the collapse of the Buffalo Grove support. So we'll find a solution to that. It'll probably be in the context of the contractor proposal that we're going to bring back probably in January to the board from somebody. Mundelein is a lead candidate, but we'll broaden the interest. But what I asked Margarita to do is continue to report as she has, so we can maintain at least a fundamental data, a core database of activities, and then turn this into something that's a little more relevant from a policy standpoint and analysis standpoint in terms of how we're doing. And a lot of that drives also into where do we want to take building permit revenues in the future, which is sort of a, kind of a spring budgetary issue as well. So this is a lot of redundancy in here from the format of last month, but it does reflect the activities that have been going on in the department.
Any questions on that? If not, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is approval of the board meeting minutes from the September 22nd, the October 5th, the October 13th, and the November 24th meeting. Did anyone have any comments? If not, does somebody want to make a motion to approve them all?
Can we do them all together?
Yes, you can. Yeah.
I would make a motion to approve all four board meeting minutes, September 22nd, October 5th, October 13th, and November 24th.
Okay, moved by trustee O'Reilly, seconded by
Second.
trustee Michaud. Roll call, please.
Trustee Michaud,
Yes.
Trustee O'Connor,
Yes.
Trustee Nora,
Yes.
Trustee O'Reilly,
Aye.
and Trustee Borowski.
Yes.
All right, motion carried. It's now time for public comment. Any public comment? All right, I take that as a no. Is there
I
a
don't
reason?
consider myself the public.
Are you a private?
Huh?
Are
Yeah.
you a private? If you're not a public, you're a private.
I guess I'm a private, yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right, Mr. Private, yes. Is there any reason to go into executive session tonight? I don't think so. So everyone,
We're breaking a record.
yes. So does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Michaud. Seconded by trustee O'Reilly. Was that it?
Yep.
Okay. And that's a roll call.
Okay, shoot, sorry. I was dishing out some cheesecake. This is why it's not good to be home in doing this. We should be together. Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that. It was trustee O'Reilly. made the
Trustee Michaud
motion.
moved it, and then it was trustee O'Reilly that seconded it.
Okay, thank you. And trustee Borowski,
Yes.
trustee O'Reilly,
Yes.
trustee Nora,
Yes.
Don't sound so
trustee
excited.
Sorry, been a long week.
trustee O'Connor,
Yes.
and trustee Misha.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Welcome.
night.
Have a
Everyone.
safe holidays, everybody.
Merry Christmas,
You
everybody.
too.
Two.
Yep.
We'll
Bye.
see each other next week.
Yes.
Or the week after, right? Is it the week after?
Next
the
week, we
weekend.
have the special meeting for the hearing. And then on 2 weeks thereafter is.
Okay,
when
then there's the 2-week
special
break
meeting
after
for
Christmas.
approval.
Okay. All
Yep.
right. Cool.
Okay,
All
have a
right. See you next week.
Good night.
good-
Good night.